The Nigerian Civil War, also known as the Biafran War, was undoubtedly one of the most traumatic and consequential events in Nigerian history. But for a surprising number of people, Biafra isn't just history, they want it to be their future. Is this because the conditions which once led Nigeria's southeast to seek independence still exist today? Or is it because the wounds from this especially brutal war never healed? Or is it because of entirely new issues that have recently arisen? Whatever the reason, today's Biafra movement is not at all like the one from half a century ago. Here's the story. When Nigeria gained independence from Britain in 1960, it was composed of 3 regions, each dominated by one of Nigeria's biggest ethnic groups: the House of Fulani in the north, the Yoruba in the west, and the Igbo in the east. Violence erupted after a failed military coup led mostly by Igbo officers, in which the governor of the north was assassinated. Facing reprisals, many Igbos who lived in the north fled to the eastern region as refugees. Tensions continued to escalate, and in 1967, the military governor of the east announced the unilateral independence of the Republic of Biafra. The civil war that followed was a humanitarian disaster. Nigeria's armed forces ground out a victory over 3 years, but not before up to 4.5 million people had been displaced, and up to 2 million civilians were dead. But before it was ultimately crushed, Biafra was formally recognized by 5 countries, informally recognized by many more, established its own currency, and won supporters all over the world. For the 3 decades that followed the war, Nigeria was ruled almost exclusively by a series of military dictators, none of whom were equipped for, or particularly interested in, the difficult process of reconciliation. As a result, many Igbo people have felt politically marginalized since the Civil War, which, on top of the psychological trauma and economic devastation caused by the conflict, has fostered a widespread belief that they are a persecuted people. 1999 was a year of change. Nigeria held its first democratic presidential election for 16 years. It has remained a democracy, although an imperfect one, ever since. That same year, the movement for the actualization of the sovereign state of Biafra, or MASSOB, became the first prominent organization since the war to campaign for Biafra's independence, and the issue has never been far from the headlines ever since. The Biafra of 1967 and the modern Biafra movement use the same symbols and have the same ultimate goal, but pretty much everything else about them is radically different. The Biafra of 1967 had a single leader, a government apparatus, and, most importantly, a unified military with effective control over a relatively large territory. As a result, the Civil War was fought like a state-on-state conflict. In contrast, the modern movement is dispersed across dozens of organizations with conflicting methods and has multiple leaders who compete for legitimacy. It began as a political movement calling for an independence referendum, but has since turned into an insurgency. With no front lines to separate the combatants, violence can suddenly erupt anywhere. Since 2014, MASSOB has been eclipsed in influence by the indigenous people of Biafra, or IPOB, founded by Nnamdi Kanu. IPOB initially continued disruptive civil disobedience actions, a tactic used by MASSOB, but in late 2020, Kanu founded a militant wing called the Eastern Security Network to drive off herdsmen from the north who began grazing on traditional Igbo lands. When the Nigerian army attacked an ESN base in February 2021, Kanu responded by declaring a second Biafran war. Kanu was then arrested in Kenya, possibly illegally by Nigerian Secret Service agents, brought back to Nigeria, and put on trial for multiple charges, including treason. With Kanu in prison, a Nigerian lawyer living in Finland, named Simon Ekpa, now claims to be the new IPOB leader. Kanu has denounced him as a conman, but Ekpa has convinced many IPOB members to follow him. He has initiated stay-at-home strikes and declared himself the Prime Minister of the Biafra Republic government in exile. Meanwhile, the number of violent pro-Biafran factions has grown, and the conflict is spreading. Some Biafran militias are active on the Bakassi Peninsula, which once belonged to Nigeria but is currently part of Cameroon, and have forged alliances with Ambazonian insurgents, drawing the Cameroonian military into the conflict as well. While these militant groups enjoy sufficient popular support in the southeast, it's hard to see how the Nigerian government can achieve victory. But the pro-Biafra movement is so fractured, it's also hard to see how it can possibly win. Nigeria's 2023 presidential election might show a new way forward, however. Peter Obi, a governor from Anambra State in former Biafran territory, finished in a strong third place with 25% of the vote. Crucially, his support spread far beyond the Igbo heartland. He won several states in the north and west, including Lagos State. If Obi, or another Igbo politician, someday wins the presidency, especially with support from across the country, this could go a long way to healing the wounds left over from the Civil War. But will this moment come soon enough? The dream of an independent Biafra has already proven extremely costly, and the price is going up every day. The question its supporters must ask is, has this dream already become too expensive?